Now we're going to take a look at physics materials and what they're used for. So let's go ahead and set up our scene first. Let's go ahead and create a plane. Alright, that's good right there. And we're going to go ahead and have a rigid body, so we need to create a sphere. I'm just going to go ahead and raise this up a bit and add a rigid body to it. Go to Component, Physics, Rigid Body. And we'll leave the default values as is. Now for our physics materials, we need to go ahead and import a package. So let's go to Assets, Import Package, and we're going to go down to Physics Materials. Now it's not necessary to use the physics materials that come with Unity, but we can just test them out since these are already pre-made. So a physics material is essentially just a material that has physics type of objects applied to it. So we take a look at each one of these. You can see one's called bouncy, ice, metal, rubber, and wood. These are pretty self-explanatory. Let's go ahead and show you how to add them to your plane here. So click on your plane and you'll see a section under the mesh collider called material. And this is where we're going to be adding our physics material. So go ahead and open this up and you can select one of these. We'll start off with bouncy. Double click it. And now if we take a look at the bouncy material in the inspector panel, you can see the different settings in here. So go ahead and hit play to see how it works first off. And now our ball is bouncing along this plane here. And this is the bouncy physics material that's being applied to this plane to give that bouncy effect. So dynamic friction is friction that's applied to our objects based off when they're moving. So if this sphere is moving along this material here, it's going to have a dynamic friction. If it's not moving, it's going to have a static friction. And these are both set to 0.3. The bounciness is set to the highest level here. We can decrease this, but the maximum is 1. Friction combined and bounce combined basically takes the combination of both the sphere and whatever objects are interacting with the material, and it's going to combine them. So for this one, it's taking the friction of both the sphere and the plane, and it's combining them to give us the average of both of those. So if you open these up, you can see you have multiply, minimum, and maximum. Same thing with the bounce combine. It's taking the bouncing of the ball and the plane and it's combining them to give us the maximum, which is why it bounces so much. If we change this to say average and hit play, you can see it pretty much acts like a basketball hitting the ground. So let's go ahead and change this back to maximum. Now the friction direction adds a friction along these axes, and dynamic friction 2 adds another type of friction as well. And then we have static friction 2. Right, so that is the basics of each of these physics materials. Each one of these has different values. So we take a look at ice. You can see the dynamic friction here is a little bit smaller. And then we have the friction combined and bounce combined set to the minimum allowed. So let's go ahead and rotate this object a bit. And we're going to go ahead and apply a cube. I'm going to go ahead and delete the other sphere here. Now for the cube, it's essentially on top of this plane here. So let's go ahead and add a rigid body here as well. And we want this cube to slide off. So we're going to leave the default values. Let's go back to our plane and change the physics material to ice. Now we hit play. You can see that the objects try to slide off. So let's go ahead and change the values in here. So the friction combined and bounce combined are set to the minimum. Let's go ahead and adjust this to the top of our plane and rotate this just slightly more. Make sure that the cube is not stuck in the ground. Alright, there we go. Let's hit play. And you can see that our cube is starting to slide off. So that is the ice. Now if we change it to metal, the metal has a little bit more friction applied to it. If we take a look at the metal, you can see the dynamic friction and static friction are set to 0.25, and the friction and the bounce combined are set to average. And then finally we have rubber, which is the friction is set to the maximum. And then wood has it averages as well. You can create your own physics material either by right-clicking the project panel and going to create physics material, or you can also go up to assets, create physics material. Let's go ahead and create our own. And you can just name this bouncy 2. We'll name it Bouncy Ice. Now in here we can change the values. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 0.001, 0.001. Bounciness set to 1, and the friction combined set to the minimum. The bounce combined set to the maximum. Now if we go ahead and hit play, actually we should have made those changes before, but it looks like it saved them, so we're good to go. Alright, make sure the plane has this material attached to it. Alright, there we go. Now let's go ahead and hit play and see how it works. So now we have a very bouncy material that also has ice-like properties. So that is how you use physics materials in your game. So go ahead and experiment with them, create your own physics materials and try them out.